dream but feel stuck, if you are facing obstacles that seem overwhelming, or if you just need a dose of motivation to keep pushing forward, then you are in the right place. So buckle up, dreamers. Anchor Your Dreams is not just a podcast, it's a community of dreamers supporting dreamers, women supporting women. Subscribe, follow along, and let's navigate the seas of ambition together. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and empowered. The journey begins now.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good, thanks. Thank you so
Can
much
you-
for reschedule last week, last minute. That meant a lot to me. I appreciate that.
Oh, I totally understand, honestly.
One has been kind of trying to rearrange our summer plans quickly and make some extra fun. And then I thought I had everything covered.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us like who
Okay.
you are. What makes Rosie Rosie?
So, hey, I'm Rosie. I am a Vancouver Island-based small business owner and jeweler. I started my small business. It's called Joie Designs. It's literally French for joy. It's a little bit of a double entendre. Joey was also the name of my biological mother. So it kind of means both, but most people see my sign and they often call me Joey. I'll usually just answer hi. If I'm at a market and people just address me as Joey, I know they're trying to get a hold of me. Really, it's joy inspired jewelry. And for me, that means coastal lifestyle. So I'm biophilic tendencies, that innate need to be out in nature, to connect with nature. I bring a lot of that into my designs, as well as just kind of lifestyle pieces as well. And that's me in a nutshell. My happy place is sea to sky country. So oceans, forests, mountains. It's kind of where I go to reset and recharge. It's where I go for exercise and fun. It's where I take my family for holidays. So yeah, really, I'm a pretty simple person. I like the beautiful outdoors, and you'll see that in all aspects of my life.
I love that. So, how did you get into this business? And have you always been creative and used this as your income source as well?
No, it was my passion project side hustle for many, many years. How I got into jewelry making was me and my girlfriend were living in Whistler at the time, and we never got to see each other too much because we were working a lot. So we signed up for a ring making workshop in the spring. So once a week we would drive to Vancouver together and do this evening ring making workshop. I absolutely fell head over heels in love, and I don't think she ever made another thing again. um a couple of years later went and did, it was a 2-year diploma program in jewelry, art, and design at Vancouver Community College. I turned it into a 3-year program, or third year program, because I broke my collarbone partway through second year and I couldn't complete it. It really was a blessing in disguise though. Having it, not being able to do it made me realize how strong my passion was. And the class that I got to graduate with was a much more cohesive group. So it's amazing how much the group dynamic can change something, or when you have something taken away from you that you're like, wow, I really want that. And then I kept that as my side hustle for forever. I thought I had really great advice back when I had the studio in this arts co-op space in Vancouver years ago. And it was a fellow artist who said, you can have a career and be an artist. And I thought, that's what I have to do. So I went back to school, got another diploma, this time in geoscience engineering. I'm a rock dork. I like rocks. Whether it's stems or geology, I like my rock. And that's what I was doing for quite a long time. And by some turn of events, I ended up working in civil engineering, which was not really my passion. And I was working in a not awesome work environment. It was not uncommon to see people in tears at work. We had to put notes on our cubicles to let people know we were on a break if we were taking our break at our desk. there were some things that just weren't ideal. Anyways, I was never around. And my son, who was 18 months old at the time, he stopped letting me pick him up. And that was kind of like my heart soul crushing moment. So I had started being like, okay, we're going to quit my job. I'm going to launch my business. I need to try. Also, my kids, I thought, how do I teach them to chase their dreams if I've been too afraid to ever chase mine? So, we had this plan in place. I was going to start saving, and, maybe a year or two down the road, I would finally make the leap. Anyways, I had been working 4 days a week, and my boss told me that because the other manager had quit, I'd have to come back for 5 days. And that was my impetus. I gave my 2 weeks notice. I said, that doesn't really work for me. And they said, well, we're not really asking. I said, okay, well, how should I give you my resignation? This isn't verbal. I'll submit it officially in writing. So yeah, I took that giant leap almost 3 years ago, and this August will be 3 years. And it's been 3 years now that I've been doing this as my sole source of income.
And so that was in Vancouver?
No, I was on the island.
Okay, so you were on the island when you were doing the civil engineering.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that is, going back to what you said about your son and just kind of like also a role model. It's something that comes up quite a bit in conversation with other entrepreneurs as well, and going after dreams. And it is so important to be a role model. So, and I think that our daily actions really can speak volumes for how we're showing up as a role model in that way. Now, joy is part of something that you lean into, and that's what the name of your business is. So how does that inspire you now, 3 years in? How are you still using joy to inspire you?
Oh, great question. I think it's kind of what keeps me going rather than what inspires me. So, as I'm sure you're aware, there's no steady paycheck, there's no steady anything in being an entrepreneur. There's highs and highs and lows and lows. There's dry spells, there's good spells. So it's those joy moments that you need to lean into to kind of keep you through those harder parts. And for me, one of my biggest moments of realization when I was going through a bit of a struggle was realizing there was a time where I dreamed about being where I am now. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I have to remember I used to only dream about being in this place. So that's something that I try to remember. The other one I try to remember, which isn't really so much joy-based, but maybe a little bit, I know I let fear hold me back for many, many years. And, people always talk about this comfort zone, but I feel like the comfort zone is a fallacy. Like there's really nothing comfortable about being on the outside looking into something you want, feeling stuck and, wanting something more, but being too afraid to act on it. Like, it's not really a comfortable feeling at all.
No, yeah, I agree with that for sure.
It's kind of one of the reasons also, it wasn't just the role model for my children, like, because I pictured how that conversation would go, like, you could be anything you want. Is that what you did, mommy? Oh, no, I was too afraid to try, but you should. But the other one was, I figured at the end of the day, I would have more regrets if I never tried than if I tried and failed. So, really, you got to try. You owe it to yourself. And, being able to even just have a flexible schedule, to be able to take my kids to after school activities, like that was not something I used to be able to do. Like I used to be the mom standing outside of before school care, waiting for the doors to open, and then jumping in my car, driving like a jerk because I had 30 minutes to make a 40-minute trip. And then, I got really good at meal planning, but I would get home about 5:15, and we usually start bedtime about 6:30, 6:45. So it was just like I wasn't I was always pressured, like it wasn't like now, not to say there's ever times I don't feel pressured, but like if my kid takes half an hour to put their shoes on because they need to do it themselves, I can kind of find joy in that moment. Whereas before it was just like, oh my gosh, there's my coffee break gone. Oh, my boss is going to be mad today. The stress is gone. So I find joy in those moments, having more time, more flexibility. Yeah. Sorry, that was a really long convoluted
No,
answer.
that's okay. I I saw myself in that story because I was once there too. And when you were talking about that, and like you couldn't take that half an hour to just find joy in the moment, really brought this visualization for me that there's no living in there when you're going from one thing to another, and then back home, and you got to get dinner on the table, and then you got to get your kids to bed by a certain time. Like, where is the living
Yeah, you
in all of that?
go through the motions. Or, I
Mm-hmm.
always said like I was drill sergeant mom, like, okay, got to do this. And then I would get really anxious and stressed out if things, curveballs got thrown. And really, like, let's be honest, life with kids especially is nothing but all curveballs.
Exactly. When you think that you've got everything figured out in that season, in that stage, and then boom, next thing you know, it's like something else gets thrown in there. So, how did you find the adjustment going from like 9 to 5 to this totally different way of living?
Um, you know what? I found it easier because I used to work, yeah, like I worked, what was it, 8 to 4:30, plus it was a commute. And then I would often work on my business after my kids went to bed. So, by giving up the 40-hour a week job, all of a sudden I actually had more time. Um, I've definitely, and I still struggle with learning need like structure. I'm good. I'm good at sitting down to do work. It's focusing on one task at a time that I have a difficult time with. And the days that I actually can kind of get into that flow state and really kind of mono focus on one activity at a time, I'm just like, wow, I got so much done. Because I'm a multitasker. And too many times I'll, see something that will remind me of that, reminds me of that. And I do eventually get most things done, just sometimes they take a little bit longer. So
Yeah, I imagine that your studio is at home.
yeah.
So you're essentially, yeah. And I find sometimes that has been for me a big adjustment is always being at home. And yeah, same thing. Trying to get in the flow of something, but then, oh, there's something over there. Oh, there's something over there. Because you're always in the same space all the time. Um, what to help motivate others and to sort of like talk about keeping things on that sense, where can we focus, like as a mom, someone who's busy, we've got now all these different things, so we went from knowing, like showing up in the morning and knowing what was expected of us for the most part, and now you're responsible for all of it yourself. It's all on you. You get to choose and decide. And while flexibility is absolutely wonderful to have, um, how do you stay focused? How do you get through that and get through those moments?
I guess really I'm a list person. So yeah, I guess goals, planning, time blocking. I like to do quarterly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals. And sometimes it's kind of like, I don't want to just say goals. It's not just I want to make X amount of dollars this month, but it's like, okay, I want to release one new collection. I want to start my rewards program. I want to, learn how to do a certain task in 3D drafting or something, whatever it may be. So I usually kind of try to set 3 main items for my quarter. So 1 a month. I always throw a bonus item in there if time permits. And then I kind of just do that on a weekly basis, a daily basis. One thing I love to do in the evenings, because I still do sometimes work a little bit in the evenings, I like to brain dump. So at the end of the night, write down all the things that I have to do for the next day so that I can just kind of turn my brain off. And then when I wake up in the morning, I can walk in and be like, okay, what's on my list for today? I've already written my list for the day. And then as the day goes, I can refer to my list, cross things off, add new things. But yeah, brain dumping, it was years ago, I took a time management course, and I remember they talked a lot about that with brain dumping. And he said women in particular, not always, I'm generalizing, find it very beneficial because we do have a harder time turning off our brains. You've always got, put the balls down, stop juggling them, safely put them aside, write them down. So you're not like, it's not all these things that you have to keep going through your brain at all time. So I do that with a lot of things, whether it's, meal planning for the week, whether it's business planning for the week, just kind of writing them down, letting them go. And then you have something to refer back to keep you accountable when you kind of have those squirrel moments, lose track.
Oh, I love that. I had to do that. Well, I had to do that last night. Like I was just, yeah, all of a sudden I just started feeling this like sense of overwhelm. And I was just like, okay, what can I do right now? What can I do? It was the end of the night. There was a few things that just kept kind of cycling through my thoughts throughout the day, and I didn't get to them. So I did almost that very thing, similar. I just decided to sit with pen and paper, and I just writing. I don't even know what I was writing. I have to look back at what was actually written to even remember what got like from ink to paper there, but it really did help because even though I only had a few minutes before I heard, Mom, when are you coming? It really did help. I was able to transition. It really helped me transition from like almost like a work mode into back into sort of like relax mom mode for a minute. So yeah, I think that's a great tip. Brain dumping is definitely something that I think can help a lot in, like you said, different areas, whether it's work related, creativity related, if you got a new idea or a new collection you're thinking about, or anything like that. I love that so much.
So you actually made me think of something there, because one of the things you said, how do you keep going? Joy. And I can't believe I forgot this one, but related again, I keep a notebook next to my bed, and sometimes to journal in the evening, sometimes to brain dump, and sometimes because I get these weird little ideas that will pop into my head, and I'll be like, oh, that would make a great social media post, or oh, that will, that's an idea for an email newsletter or blog or whatever it may be. And I realized that I forget a lot of things these days, so I write them down. But the other thing is celebrate wins. I don't care how big, how small. And this is a habit I probably need to get myself back into. I used to keep a journal, and I would write down 3 to 5 wins every single day, no matter how small they were. Like, hey, I went for a walk on my lunch break and took some time for me today. I drank 3 liters of water today. Like, I'm well hydrated. I don't care what they are. Like, whether it's like, hey, I landed a new wholesale account. If it's a big sticky one that, you've been working on for a long time, or if it's just a tiny little thing you did for yourself to honor yourself, celebrate those wins, because then you also get into that, you do what you focus on. So if you're always focusing on the positive, not to say there's not going to be bad days, but it does really help. And then also, if you're having a bad day, look back and reread those things that you wrote down for yourself. And I have to say, I'm guilty. I have not been writing them down enough, but it's good. Or, be in another business group where you can have those like Friday check-ins at the end of the week. Like, what did you accomplish? Tell me your biggest wins this week. And it's so important, I find, to have those moments and have people that you can celebrate those moments with.
I love that. Well, that just also made me think, what type of community have you found the most helpful through your journey of being an entrepreneur and going into your business?
I've found a community. I did a coaching program called Flourish and Thrive Academy, and I did some courses that they taught. One was called Laying the Foundation, and then I did some more advanced ones with them. And I found that so helpful um, because it's A, all jewelers, and B, all business. So, whether it was like a technical question, a supplier question, or like a website back end question, it was just really nice to have that whole community um, of people. And the best part is, like, we're all jewelers. And you would think like people would be competitive, and it's not like that. It's very much a collaborative, collaborate over competition. There's room for all of us to be successful. We're sharing tips and tricks. We're not stealing each other's designs. So it's a really fabulous community, and it's really great. It's a lot of women. There are men too, but it just happens to be really heavy on women. But it's just that really nice idea, like, it could go either way, but it doesn't. Um, you put a whole bunch of very similar businesses, but we find those differences. And yeah, it's just, I can't say that enough, to collaborate over competition. Because like,
I love that.
unless, if you are coming up with a magical new idea, you're probably getting patented anyways. So for the most part, none of us have invented anything. There are a few who have, don't get me wrong, and I want to celebrate them too. But for the most part, like, the techniques I'm using, like, were taught to me by someone else. They're not, or, they're not, I'm not reinventing the wheel or anything. These are, lost wax casting is like really back to the Bronze Age. The irony,
Wow.
that's what casting
Yeah.
goes back to, right? So if I can give someone a tip or a trick, or help them find a supplier that I liked, yeah, and then just someone who can understand your vents and problems, or even if you have like a difficult customer, and be like, hey guys, can you proofread this, email response? I really want to get this right. How does this come off? Or just to have an unbiased third-party opinion is, I find, so valuable as a business owner. And it can get lonely working on your own every day. So having that community means the world.
Yes. Yes. Well, and it sounds like for you, finding a community that really fit in like your niche, like jewelry specifically. And I'm sure even there's probably even it's broad within the group itself. And then I'm sure you could probably find something even more niche down. But having a community is so important. And it sounds like you were able to find one fairly quickly and be able to lean on them and also give back yourself to that community as well. So that's wonderful. And inspiration, I think it's easy to find inspiration in so many places, and it doesn't necessarily, like you said, it's not competition. You might be inspired by someone else's uh, view perspective on what they're doing in their jewelry as well. So that's great. Do you have anyone local? Like, have you met anybody from that community?
Ironically, there's a few people I've met from that community that are local to the island. There's another girl that I've become quite friendly with who's in Ontario, because there's not as many Canadians in that group. We both, turns out, we went to the same jewelry school, just a couple of years apart from each other. We have very similar lifestyles and very similar design and, inspirations. We just happen to be in kind of like opposite sides of the country. But that being said, I have met local groups, and I think I met you through a Facebook group. Was it BC Women in Business?
Oh, possibly. There, when I started the podcast or looking for guests. Oh, could be Smith Lake Farm.
That was going to be the other one I was going to say that I absolutely adore.
Okay.
And that is a local group and an in-person group, which is something that no virtual group will, you just can't quite match the same energy when you get amazing women in a room together. And I love the Smith Lake Farm events.
Yeah, I unfortunately haven't made it to one of their events yet, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to make it to one soon. But you're right, in-person events, I think the energy, it's a shared energy, and even doing podcast interviews, there is, as much as I know we're connecting through this screen and we can see each other, really, it's really interesting to also have a different shared energy when you're in person. So community groups are great. And like you said, going back to that too, it can be lonely. It can be very lonely. You're doing everything yourself on your own. Like, even though we do have these online community groups, we can ask a question to, or seek out help and advice or anything like that. We still are in our spaces alone doing this. So sometimes it can be lonely, even though we're not alone. We have these communities to rely on. And again, it sounds like you have found one that just works so well. So that is great. I was going to ask if there's any surprising connections that you have made over the last few years, whether it's meeting somebody at markets or even just within the community.
Absolutely. One of my favorite ones is one of the stores I sell is here in Comox, Island Affair Giftware, and she has been nothing shy of amazing, Lila, in supporting me. She was one of my very first stores, and I remember being like knots in my stomach, afraid to walk in and be like, I'm gonna pull up my big girl pants and, go ask her if she wants to carry my jewelry, which she still does. And she's been amazing. And one day I walked into her store and I saw she sells a lot of local artwork and local makers, and it was this t-shirt with this kind of circle wave pattern. I'm like, oh wow, like this, who's this kindred spirit of mine? Like that looks a lot like my logo. Obviously we have, rolling hills, ocean waves, very similar design aesthetic. And then it was kind of still during the COVID times. There's, instead of the big Philberg Festival, they did these little mini Philbergs in the park, and they would get about 6 vendors very spaced apart on the front lawn. And lo and behold, it was the designer of the t-shirt who I was like, who is this kindred spirit? So we were vending beside each other, and instantly we were both like, yep, drawn to each other's style. And I had been planning a photo shoot, and I said, it's kind of last minute, but anyway, you want to come join us? I would love to shoot some of our stuff together. And we have done a couple shoots together since then. And then, of course, the first Smith Lake Farm event I rolled up to, she was there. Some of the last shoot we did were other women photographers, people who modeled, other businesses, all from that we've met through Smith Lake Farm community women in business events. So yeah, it's definitely, that was one of those, serendipitous kind of moments that mean to happen. And really markets. Yeah, some people that are like good friends of mine, I've met just because you become their weekend best friend. You're next to each other. And I have a lot of people that I message with, and we give each other feedbacks like, hey, this was a great market, or like, oh, this one wasn't as good for me, but it might have been really, I think your product would have done fantastic here. And just giving that open, honest feedback, and really some great, amazing, positive people. And yeah, I feel like there's that sense of community as well, which has been fantastic.
Oh, yes. Having markets and meeting people and other vendors and everything. That's another way that also I think can help bridge the gap between like feeling lonely in what you're doing and being able to get out there and network and do things. It's all wonderful and part of it all.
To go
Go
on,
ahead, sorry.
I was going to say one other thing, what I found a very surprising support and community where I didn't expect it was actually with my customers. You know, I've had some repeat customers for years, some, and just people that follow me on social. And that has been really surprising and like such an honor and a blessing. I've been opening up a little bit more on social media, and I've had people like, you know, just dealing with medical stuff with my son, like actually message me and offer suggestions and hints and, you know, recommendations. And that has been, I think, a huge surprise that I didn't expect. Was like, you know, wow, A, these people follow me, but B, like they truly care. You know, and like some people I would call them my friends. After, and I totally would not know them if it wasn't for my business. So I think that was a really pleasant surprise.
That is really interesting. Do you feel like, did you have a hard time in the past showing vulnerability on social media? Like, do you feel like on social media, people just want to see business, they want to see the product or the service? And now do you find it starting to get a little bit easier to just really share more?
I used to have a hard time showing my face, let alone showing vulnerability. And actually, it was funny. I posted like a little, it was still kind of mostly silhouette, but it was a video. I try not to put my kids' faces on social, at least not on my business account. And I showed this little video, and it was my daughter and I walking into the ocean to go for an evening swim together. And I was like, wow, I can't believe, like, A, I used to never show myself, but B, like showing myself in a bathing suit on social, that feels empowering. Yeah, I've definitely opened up more. I used to think, you know, and I was like, I realized like I'm not a Walmart, I'm not a major business where it's just all business. I am a person. All my designs are from my heart. So I have leaned into that connection and realization more. And lately, yeah, I don't know if it was that I was lonely or brave or just it was so all encompassing that I had to open it up. But yeah, I've definitely been sharing a little bit more vulnerability on social and in my email lately. And I'm glad I have, because when I do show that vulnerability, I've had other people reach out. I had a phone call I got one time, and I feel terrible. So if this person's listening, I do meant to call you back. I cannot find where I wrote your phone number down. And I got a new phone. I got an article published last year just in time for World Clubfoot Day, which is June 3rd. June 3rd or yeah, June 3rd. My son was born with clubfoot, so I'm a bit of an advocate. I made some not-for-profit pieces, and I had an article written in the Comox Valley Record newspaper. And I had a gentleman that reached out and looked up my phone number and called me because of that article and shared some of his experiences having gone through clubfoot. So yeah, I feel really blessed. Every time I have opened up and shared vulnerability, shared things a bit more personal, I feel like I've gained more connections, and I've had other people reach out to me, which it means so much to me. So I feel like, and I think about it, other times I've seen people open up and be vulnerable. If it's something that can relate to me, I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad I wanted someone to talk about that with. So I think it really is important to open up, and, within reason, with, if you're not comfortable, don't do it. Like, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. But if it's just that little bit of scary and you actually want to, then by all means do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another thing, like with social media. I know for myself sometimes, like I've always kind of overshared a lot of stuff. Even when I was a kid, my mom would be like, that's probably not something that you say to that person. Like I just was that type of person. Like my brother, he like pulled a muscle or something and we were at the hospital, and I just walked over to the room next to me and started chatting to whoever was there and willing to listen. Oh yeah. And I think something happened to him that I could relate to, and I was just like, yeah, blah, 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 like, and it's me. It's just like something I do. But then with social media, sometimes I find it like, ooh, like, is this too much? Is this like sharing too much? Is this, especially on like a business page, I think is where but then I get to these points where if I feel like I'm too businessy and too rigid, then I start to feel disconnected, and the creativity surrounding posting things starts to like wane a bit. So I just found it interesting, like you were talking about starting to show up a little bit more vulnerable, but also gaining connection with your community from that.
And you just hit so many points there. Like, I'm an oversharer. My partner sometimes is like, you aren't just an oversharer, you lack a filter too. But you know what? Like, some of my closest friends that I've bonded with, it's because we probably do all overshare. And it is that connection that you get from, meeting people and within reason. And it's funny, it's exactly what you said with social. Like, if you met me in real life, yes, I'm that person that will talk to strangers in the lineup for the coffee shop. But then all of a sudden you put me on social media and I was like, oh, and I think I don't want to say I tried to be something I was not, but I was trying to keep it a little, because I have worked in corporate offices.
Professional is, and
Yeah.
I don't know why I really did that, to be honest, but
I
I think
totally, yeah. And it was like, well, wait a minute. I'm allowed to have visible tattoos and piercings and cut my hair how I want. And like, this is me. I get to make the rules now. And if people don't relate or resonate with it, they're just simply going to move on and follow someone that they do resonate and relate to. So why do I care? And I think it's also just letting go, no F's to give. Letting go of what people think. Because it is kind of scary putting yourself, it's one thing when you are in person oversharing, who's looking at you and who's around you. But when you put it on the World Wide Web, you don't get to choose who listens to that story anymore. You're just putting it out there for anyone. So maybe that's where it becomes a little bit scarier and even more vulnerable.
Yes, yeah, that I for sure. And once it's out there, it's out there. um has So going back to sort of dreams and everything, have you created any sort of new ideas around what your dreams are for your business? Do you have anything lined up for like this year or next year, or any other maybe big things that you're hoping for that's a dream of yours?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I mean, my goals and dreams change. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm still building. I'm still, I would like more financial security. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still not as secure as I would like to be or need to be in some places. I miss having benefits. That's really been hitting hard recently, dealing with some upcoming medical expenses. I want to be able to keep doing what I'm doing. And I want to keep growing and building. That would be my dream. Really, one of my biggest goals and dreams is to move out of my house. Have a little bit more space that I don't share with my husband. I've got some in the garage, some in this little office. I would love to have a space, and I would love to have staff. That is a dream of mine. One thing I've always said is I would love to be able to hire a parent and offer flexible working hours, because I see far too often people having to choose between work and kids. And I have felt in that position myself. And I also want to be like an empowering boss that, you know, I've worked for amazing companies where like I look forward to going to work every day. And I want to be one of those companies. I don't, you know, like that would be my dream. I would love to be able to go on holiday. I usually do some sort of like, hey, I have to take the express shipping off my website when I go away. And then put like a big banner on my site, like shipping will be a little, you know, processing is slower than normal. And it was either like, oh, do I shut down the website completely for a week? So I usually offer like some sort of gift with patience, you know, and try to make it as clear as possible. Like, this is not getting shipped for 10 days. We're on a much needed family vacation. And usually our family vacations are off the grid, so nothing's getting shipped. So yeah, I would love my business to keep running without me when I take a holiday. I would love for my customers not have to wait longer for orders when I take a holiday. So those are dreams of mine. But yeah, so I would love to, yeah, be big enough that I can not only support myself without worry throughout the year, but I would like to be able to support other people as well.
Oh, I love that. I just, while you're sharing and talking about it, and like the brightness in your face and just like the energy exuding out of that dream and you talking about it, it was great. I could feel it. And it made me want to work for you. I was like, oh, well, maybe one day, because you would be someone I would want to work for.
Yay.
In preparation for this interview, I did do some research and noted that you have some features and been recognized on breakfast television, the Vancouver Sun, Canadian Cycling Magazine, to name a few, and also been a guest on some other podcasts. So it seems as though like you're being recognized out there, like much farther than this rock that we live on right now. So can you just share a little bit about what that's been like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been pretty active, for the most part, in reaching out for those. For the cycling magazine, for instance, I do some very bike specific designs. So I had just reached out to them and said, hey, you know, would you like to include me in, I saw your gift guide. I think this jewelry could be a perfect fit for it. And luckily they agreed. So they put me the first year in their digital issue. And the next year they said, contact us earlier and we can probably get you in the print issue as well. So I did. Same thing, I think I had written a pitch for the Vancouver Sun, which she said, I don't think I can run that, but I do have a style Q&A. Would you be interested in it? So absolutely. So I did that. That one was really bittersweet. Oh, I'm gonna cry. It was printed the same day my dad's obituary was printed. So yeah, that was, yeah, the December 18th newspaper. I'll never forget that one. But yeah, so anyways, but yeah, I've been trying, I go through phases where I actively seek out, tried some, like I said, I pitched the Comox Valley record about my clubfoot pieces I did. I just really want to raise awareness about it. I keep pitching Oprah magazine. One day they're gonna pick me up. Sorry, Cassie, because you're probably getting annoyed with me writing to you by now. But
I love this. I really love this. Okay, I have to ask. Is there like just a time of day that you find that you're just like, I'm going to pitch this right now to this person? Or is this like days that you're leading up to it and then finally you're doing it? Is it, or
no, there's no rhyme or reason. I go through like, oops, sorry, little announcement there. I go through phases. It depends too. Like I have some clubfoot articles or boilerplates kind of that I've written. So when it's getting close to Clubfoot Day, or I'm one of those people that deals with stresses in their lives by trying to like be proactive about it. So, you know, my son, we've been dealing with stuff. He's finally getting a surgery, but there's been a really hard time with getting clubfoot trained doctors in BC. We had one of the best surgeons in Canada retired, and they weren't going to replace him. And luckily, good old moms groups can make a good stink, and they found this amazing replacement, but unfortunately she has closed her office and left. And from what I hear, they've been very active again in the news, and they haven't promised a new replacement. So we'll see if it happens. But when I deal with stuff like that, so that was his doctor that closed the practice, was one of his doctors. So then we went back to the fallback doctor, somehow got missed being put on a wait list. So then it's like, I'm stressed and I'm upset about this, I will start pitching people my ideas, or I'll design jewelry. Those are kind of like my two things. So a lot of my jewelry designs, some of them are healing episodes and some have stories for them. Some of my best designs have come from places of hurt, but also sometimes when I pitch, actively reach out to, you know, and sometimes it's like I see like, ooh, look at this, you know, gift guide, like gift guides that cyclists will love. I was like, I need to be in this. You know, if I see something and go, oh, that's so me, and then I'll try to research it and reach out to them. Other times it's me just feeling pain and frustration and trying to be proactive and be like, okay, maybe I can bring some recognition to this matter. Like, you know, anyways. Yeah, so definitely not a specific day. I try never to pitch anyone on a Monday, because I know when I used to work in a Monday, boxes were just full, and you know, you're just going through all the old ones. Same thing, I never pitch someone on a Friday, because
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
People have mentally checked out by Friday afternoon. No one wants to start something new on a Friday afternoon. Yeah, I guess Wednesday, Thursday, just by like trying to be pragmatic.
Sorry, I had a thought that, oh, okay. No, sorry, I had this really great question for you. It will come back to me. It will come back to me. But going back to the pitching and everything, it sounds like there's like a little bit of pressure from somewhere that pushes you into a container where you're feeling able to go and then do the pitch. Do you have any tips about the initial pitching and the feedback, whether it's the feedback as in you've received a no, or we'll let you know when we're ready for you to be posted in this article or that article?
I get excited when I hear no. Same with pitching new wholesale accounts or new stores that I would love to try to get my jewelry into. I get excited if I hear no, because more often than not, you just don't get a response. So if I get a gentle turn down or even a firm turn down, I feel honored that I know someone actually took the time to read what I sent them and then take their time to respond back to me. To me, it's like, oh, wow, you know, like that person actually cared enough to A, read it, and B, respond to it. So I get pretty excited if that happens. And yeah, I mean, just knowing that, you know, for every 10 pitches I probably send out, I might get one reply, kind of thing. So it's just, yeah, you got to keep going, right? Like you can't let that stop you.
I love that. Well, I remember years ago when I took my first like post-secondary course, and they were talking about getting a job when we were done, and it was for being a legal assistant. And it the statistic at the time, I don't know what it would be today, but it was like for every 100 resumes you sent out, dropped off, however they were delivered, you would get like one interview. So that was like, okay, 100 resumes, I just got to get them all out. And out of 100 is one interview. And if I did better, then it was like, woohoo, I felt like I could celebrate because I got 5 interviews out of 20 resumes or something along those lines. But I think like the message of just keep going and looking at it as a positive thing, a positive sort of spin on being told no, but really it's not just a no, it's a response.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was a book I read it but somewhere it was like every no gets you closer to a yes. And I actually have it written on the wall behind you here. And it's true. It's like, so if I get no response, it probably just went lost in cyberland, never got looked at. But when I get a no, I'm like, ooh, that's closer to a yes. So I just always try to remember that every no gets you closer to a yes.
That's great. That's such a great way to look at it. We're just kind of getting into the time here. Oh, sorry. I wanted to also point out that your creations have been on some notable people as well. I thought this was incredible. A Canadian free skier, a best-selling author, an actress, and an Enduro World Series champion. Like that to me, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh. So was that also pitching, or was that how did some of those come about?
Honestly, some of those have been me donating jewelry. I do donate jewelry to quite a few groups, usually the ones that resonate with my heart, and 2 that I really love. One is called Ride Like a Girl, where professional athletes mentor kind of up and coming athletes. And the other one is called Girl in the Wild. And that is kind of to build self-confidence with female and female identifying youth. But they do these big outdoor like mountain adventure camping trips and, just get back to nature basically. And so Ride Like a Girl, I had donated some pieces, and this woman, local rider, Emmy Lamb, had won the piece through, however, I always say, they're yours to do with as you please, you can do giveaways. And she had gotten it, and she won the women's under 21 Enduro World Series and happened to be wearing my necklace when she was on the podium. And her mom actually sent me some amazing photos of her on the podium with a gold medal in a hand. Another one, she had, I think, a champagne bottle. And I reached
your
out,
necklace
and I reached
right
out,
in between.
I reached out to the photographer and I just said, hey, are you okay if I share this image with and he was like, yep, share away. So yeah, that would be one way I got, that was really just a happy accident. I donated my jewelry. I had no idea it was getting that kind of exposure. And then it also probably helped me get a little bit of clout when I, contacted Cycling Magazine. They had written an article on the Enduro World Series. And I was like, hey, I saw your article that you wrote on the Enduro World Series. You might have seen my necklace while you were covering. So I mean, it all kind of helps a bit, right? Yeah.
I
And
love that though, something that you did from the heart, right? Like to get you to that, like a full circle moment, really. But you chose to do something from your heart and donate something just because you felt aligned with those things to donate to those. So I think that is wonderful. It's just, you didn't do it necessarily to get the recognition, but you got the recognition because of what you did.
Yeah, that one was, yeah, it's exactly what it was. I mean, community for me is one of my pillars of, my core values. I'd love to give more than I do. I give what I can. I give back where I can. So yeah, it's one of those, that was a happy accident, and it really was kind of like sometimes you get back what you give out.
Is there anything else that has impacted your journey to get to where you are today?
I think everything has probably impacted my journey. I guess the other thing is mindset is huge, knowing that really at the end of the day, I'm responsible for the fails, the wins, and everything in between. And really just, proactively going after it. Like, if I'm in a market and I don't do well, or if my jewelry doesn't sell well in a store, asking, like, hey, any feedback? What could I improve? Not, oh, it's a bad store. It was, like, okay, yes, we've all done markets that are a bit slower, didn't have the traffic, but sometimes, outdoor ones, Mother Nature rules. But really constantly trying to improve, progress, not perfection. um, not, I still hate failing, but not being afraid of it. Be like, okay, that one didn't work. Check that one aside. On to the next. Yeah, just trying. It's funny, like that starving artist thing. I think I hung on to that really way too long, and I think I believed it too much. But there are lots of successful artists, but you also have to be a business person. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to make this piece of art, and the New York Times and galleries are going to come knocking on my doors and want to write stories on me and carry my pieces. It's like, you really have to, like I said, not, if I get a no, I'm excited. Like, you have to chase after it. And the other thing I've done is like take courses, take advantage of grants. So I did the digital marketing boot camp that was part of the grant program. Like I said, I took a coaching program that was business related. So that, I think that's one of the things I love about running my own business is though that, I get to choose what I want to learn, but it's that I love learning. Like I'm a student for life. So being able to constantly learn and constantly progress, but then sometimes it's finding that balance with the creativity side, right?
For sure. Well, it sounds like you're a learner, a dreamer, but you also are a doer. Like it sounds like you really do take stock of everything that's happening around you and apply things that you're learning, and also understanding that things can change and you just need to shift, but also with the idea and the outlook that it's happening for you, not to you.
Yeah, that's very, you put it more better. I can't speak anymore, apparently. I've lost my vocabulary.
And it happens to me too at sometimes like the most inconvenient times. Sorry, I'm trying to interview you, but I can't speak right now.
Some words elude me these days. Yeah, I guess that was one of the things that I didn't love about my last job was I had kind of hit my head on the glass ceiling the day I walked in. There wasn't really room for growth or improvement, and it was like, ugh, what do I do now? So when, I'm someone who needs to keep busy. Like I like doing stuff and I like stimulating the mind as well. And I remember being at that job and looking for things to do. And I was like, oops, sorry, that was my computer again. Can I clean up the file room? And they're like, it's your funeral, but go for it. And I would listen to digital marketing podcasts and like books. And I used to listen to audiobooks when I would commute to and from work. So I was like, if I don't love the job, at least I can learn business stuff. And, like if I'm just alphabetizing a file room, it's pretty mindless. Well, why don't I just, listen to something that at least keeps my mind engaged and keeps me interested? So I think it's just always like, I have a very curious mind, and yeah, I love learning and trying new things. um, yeah, I don't know where I was going there with that. Apparently my brain is turned off now. I've lost words
It's
and thoughts now.
That's okay. That's okay. I just have one more question, and that is, what is your personal favorite jewelry collection that you've made?
That's a tough one. If we're gonna go collections, I think of like how many things I've like old stuff I've made, because I've been making jewelry for like over 20 years now. Um, Probably some of the recent stuff. The resin that I've been doing, I've been loving. It started with me adding resin with some pigment to existing pieces. And then I started adding mica to get like a little bit of a shimmery look. The Craft Council of British Columbia does an earring show every year. And this year I was like, oh, I'm going to make some resin pieces for that show. And it was the first time I designed the metal work with the resin in mind. Usually it was like a design I already had and I just kind of embellished an existing design. So this was the first time that I went backwards. And last year, actually, I was driving home from Art in the Garden, a beautiful market in Anus Bay, and I was kind of looking at, the mountains in the distance with the different, shades of green, if you will. And I was like, oh, that would be really cool to do something like that in resin. And for some reason in my brain, I went, I wonder if I could crush up gemstones for color. So I still haven't done the mountain piece, but I have a few views that I've taken photos of that I want to recreate in jewelry. So it's still that. I always have a lot of designs swimming up here. But yeah, my most recently I've started, so I take food grade resin, and then I've got like powders and sands. That's me getting dorky on my geoscience again. But I've got crushed gemstones and minerals. So I've got somewhere I've done like, I did crushed emeralds for a green color on these ginkgo leaf earrings. I did some crushed garnets, turquoise that's like in a sil or powder that I just add directly to the resin. So those I've been enjoying the most, and the process is really evolving. And I feel like it's something that like my skill is also, because it's very finicky, like very detailed work, which I've always really enjoyed, which is probably why I like jewelry. Yeah, and it's just, I'm loving the colors. So I feel like I've just kind of opened Pandora's box of possibilities, and I've just kind of just started. So I'm probably the most excited about that one. Probably that's going to be my most. And my number two, I think, is I was doing a lot of kind of nature cast stuff, like the cedar leaves or the seashells, where I was making a cast of actual objects. And I've kind of taken that one step further now and just using the texture, like it's not really going to be recognizable as a shell, but finding a big shell, taking the texture from it, and then creating kind of sheet metal from that to turn into another piece. So I did a driftwood series that I released not too long ago, called Luxury Grove. And my next one's going to be with shells. So I've got some that are all kind of bubbled and hold from being, in the ocean for so many years, kind of tumbling. And then some are just like, clamshells with very rigid lines and oysters. But instead of making it like just a really obvious seashell piece, it's going to be more kind of subtle, kind of like a more subtle nod to nature. So yeah, those are the ones probably that excite me the most right now. So because they're new. So those are going to be my favorites.
Ooh, well, I love that. I love the idea of not having something so literal. I am such a literal thinker myself a lot of the times. And so the idea of looking at a piece and having that curiosity, right? Invoking something in you to to question, what am I looking at? Where could they have gotten this texture from? That's what I like. I like that a lot. It sounds like it sounds like it would be an exciting collection to build upon as well. And yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's a hint more elegant because it's just a little bit more subtle. Like it still has that nature feel to it, still has that kind of grounding energy, but just, yeah, a little more subtle, a little more elegant. Yeah, just I like trying something new.
Of course, of course. Well, and that's what makes it you as well, because you are the one behind it. You're the driving force behind these collections. So to have them have some essence of you is so important.
Thank you for this opportunity, and it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Yes, I would love to meet you. I was thinking that earlier. I'm like, oh my gosh, hopefully I feel like we could talk about so many different things, whether it's business or personal. Like, I really do think that we could chat for hours upon hours. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on and chat with me and answer some questions. I really loved having you on, and I know that the listeners will have so much to take away from this conversation.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Anchor Your Dreams. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. A big thank you to our incredible guest for sharing their wisdom and insights. If you resonated with today's episode and want to explore more about turning your dreams into reality, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We have a lineup of amazing guests and valuable content coming your way. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Share your thoughts, insights, and your own journey using the hashtag #AnchorYourDreams. Head over to our website at meganmcquillen.com in the podcast section, where you'll find the show notes, resources, and information about upcoming episodes. Before we wrap up, I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you. Your support means the world to me, and I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you. Remember, anchored dreams become goals. Anchored goals become results. Until next time, dream big and stay anchored.